If you are an agency leader or you are a technology leader, really in the space of marketing, and you're thinking about specializing, I think based on Sanchit tonight's conversation, I would recommend personally, it would either be healthcare, finance, or technology. Those three large, kind of universes, there's plenty of specialization inside of those, obviously, but like those would be the three that are perennial, that don't go anywhere, right?
They don't pay much focus on content as well. If content, they don't know that content really pulls things. If you match a great design with a really great content has to be one notch above design, I feel. If the content is great, design is not that great, people would come for it again and again because they'll find their match.
Especially if you have good usability, right? It doesn't matter how it looks. If it's good content and good usability, that site will age well. People will be happy with it. You're absolutely right. I would have wrote a shorter letter, but it would have taken more time. And so this concept is like simplicity is not easy; it's actually harder. And when you spend time to make something, simple and clean, that is actually way harder than making something that's convoluted and messy.
That's the reason why most of the intellectuals win on Twitter more than they win on Facebook, right? They win on Twitter because they know how to articulate well in short lines. That's very difficult for many people. Brian Chesky famously said that make something which 1,000 people love rather than make something which 1,000,000 people sort of like. So when 1,000 people would love it, they'll become into million.
Get out of the curse of knowledge, like get real people, get their feedback, iterate it, and then see what they say, and then build it. And then after you've built it, then give it to them again, and all the thousands of lines of code that it created, and I didn't write a single one, which is like mind blowing.
Which version did you like the most? The one that your developer created or ChatGPT?
Sanchit, you guys have 200 hours of data. Well, what are you going to do with that? Because if it's just sitting in a bunch of video files, right, or transcriptions, that's helping no one. So analysis is where you find the patterns. And then finally, strategy, where if the world is very prescriptive, if the world is very structured, then being a specialist is a benefit. So if the world looked like a chessboard and I was a chess master, I would be winning at life, but the world does not look like a chessboard. It is chaotic, right? And so being a generalist allows you to excel at, because you can kind of connect the dots on more things. But I think the thing that frustrates me is I do get the benefits to clients in specialization because you start to narrow your pattern match filter. And when you narrow your pattern match filter, you can see the signal and the noise more than a generalist. So let's just pick healthcare.
You have a company which is generalist, which is Glide. You get all kind of projects and products. What stops you from making a niche company under Glide or maybe separate? And it's simply having a domain and a hosting. You can call it Abacus and you can make it all about fintech. And you add that we have created this fintech. You can make Figma plugins as well. It's there. It's gonna be huge. So I see that there is.
Oh, you mean just to translate Figma right into a website?
That's already happening. There's a company called Locofy that is already doing that, and there are a few other companies that are already doing. But I mentioned that Figma plugins for developers because not many.
Oh, so just basically sell the shovels, right? The gold rush. Hey, we're just selling the shovels to the people looking for gold, right?
Yeah. I mean, not many people are focusing on that Figma is used by more developers than designers. Let's talk about Glide first. I looked at your business. It's really amazing. 20 years of existence, right? And that's a lot of experience there. You make things and then you market them as well. You create a market for them. So that's a really good mixture. Let's know about Glide.
Yeah, well, so it is interesting. It's for many years, I used to introduce Glide as a digital creative agency. And I recently read an article where it was talking about how, many web design and development companies, which is kind of what we are, at our essence, they're a marketing. They're not a design company. And I had a little bit of an existential crisis about this because I was like, wait a minute. No, no, no. We're a design company. We're known for design. Everyone loves our high quality, design work. But then I realized, well, who's paying the bills here? Well, I'm pretty sure it's the marketing department, right? If the marketing department is paying the bills, then then we're a marketing company and we're inside digital, which that means we're a digital marketing company. So, I mean, yes, obviously you can play with the words, but it just made me realize that the purpose of what we do is really to find and capture opportunity in the marketplace, which is a marketing function, you know? Um, so our design facilitates the marketing. The marketing's purpose is to create ROI, right? To capture opportunity profitably, right? Or it's not doing its job. And so I would say, at our essence, that's what we're trying to do, right? Web design for ROI. But ultimately, if we create the world's greatest website and you're having a lead generation problem, there's really only two levers that you can pull at the end of the day. How many qualified people come to the website and how many of those people fill out a form and contact you, or if it's e-commerce, buy a product. And so, I think that one of the things that we realized was we needed to kind of do the other part of the equation, which is the top of funnel marketing activities. So, obviously you have an organization, they're doing what they're doing, but if you can drive more qualified traffic, then that will help the cause, right, with the high conversion marketing side. So those are the two parts of the equation, right? Design and results by driving traffic.
You see, that's the best equation because you create work and then you grow it. If you are able to do them both quite good, that's all the market that you need. And at the same time, through your marketing, you get design and development work as well. So I think it's a win-win situation for an agency and its clients. When did you start marketing? Was it there since the start or marketing for client services?
Uh, I think that this all got started because I didn't like my boss, so many years ago, I was a graphic designer at an internet startup, very thankful for the opportunity. But I was ready to be done. I had multiple bosses. I felt like I was at the end of a whip. It was like every decision that was made just kind of channeled down to me. And then I was just getting flung all over the place. And it just felt like I had zero control. And, it's pretty discouraging. And so I left that company and started Glide. And, I think at the beginning, it was just to follow my heart, which was I really love design and I wanted to be on my own, doing my own thing. And I didn't want to have a bunch of bosses. So I always kind of tell the team the reason this company exists and the reason you work here is because of our core value, love what you do. Right. I would not have created this company if I didn't want to take the risk of a stable career and a stable paycheck to go out on my own with like no guarantee of success and do what I did if it wasn't for a passion for the craft. And so I think it always starts there. Really, it was a passion for the craft and a passion to be able to do things on my own and just the entrepreneurial risk to kind of go out and give it a try. And if it's possible, I would love to turn that question back around on you, Sancha. I mean, like, I don't know a lot about you. You've invited me to this call. But why did you get into what you're doing and how did you get to be here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story at my end too. It's going to be 15 years in this October, 5th of October. But at the same time, it's the same story we have. I had so much love, but I didn't have any boss. I started the company. I was freelancing for a year and then I tasted really, really good success and I got government projects. I bid for them. I found out that I was not only just good in design, I was a programmer too, but I'm good at communications. That's what many people told me that, you can articulate the kind of software we need and you came on and you really, really made it possible. So I really liked that I was able to put effect into people's lives because first of the product that I made was for like old people who were getting pensions from government jobs. So it was actually accountant general. They audit all the accounts in India. So there are many people who are old. The accountant general didn't know if they were alive or not. They had to send if they were alive, they have to send proof if they were alive, and the pension used to come to their account. But old people were not very good with computers, so we made a really, really good user experience. They would have a website, they just put the proof what they were doing, and the department knows, okay, they are alive, everything is good, just release their pensions. And that put really, really great thought into my mind that we can do a lot through technology. Yeah, I mean, there are many other things that we learn on the way, right? There are many ups and downs and really, really great products that you make that go on and become like billion-dollar companies and millions of dollars. They taste really huge success, and you find yourself in a great position. So right now, I'm tempting with making really, really great products. So that's what we're going to do in next couple of years.
All right. Really, really great products. I like that. Not just really great products, but they are really, really great. And I love it because, I mean, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability, right? And I just think that I completely agree with you. We have a core value of deliver faithfully at Glide. And, I think it aligns with exactly what you're saying, which is just like set clear expectation. Well, set clear expectations, all parties understand and agree to these expectations, and then everyone delivers faithfully. And to me, delivering faithfully would be able to create great products, right? But I love that you have a focus on usability, especially for the purpose of benefiting the lives of others. In this case, these, elderly folks who maybe have a hard time using a computer just to prove that they're alive, which is kind of ironic, you know. But I just think it's awesome, man. I think that from my perspective and what we do, usability, it is the essence. I mean, if you think about the internet, it is a tool for information. I mean, that's where it was founded, right? It was just a way to communicate. And I don't think it's really ever changed. I think people have kind of, obfuscated the purpose of the internet to be about like design and about Flash. And I mean, not Flash, the program, but like just, the pizzazz. And I think that people really get annoyed by that stuff. And to this day, I still think that, I don't know, I'll make a bold claim. 4 out of 5 website redesigns, people are way too focused on the design and not enough focused on the user experience.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, I think a fundamental issue in our industry, personally, having been in this industry my entire adult life, and have been part of more than almost 1,000 website projects of all sizes over the last 25 years. I'm 46. So basically, since I got out of college, at the age of 20, how many projects have you been a part of where there was user-centered design, i.e., there were real users that were involved in the creation of the product at the beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah.
How many? Not many. I just think it's just rare. People don't want to pay for it. They don't have the time for it. And I just think that it doesn't have to be rocket science to bring real people in and get their feedback. Everything being designed on assumptions is such a massive miss, because in our industry, people redesign their website and then they don't touch it for 5 years. And then they redesign it again 5 years later. And it's like, how much opportunity have you lost in that time of when you redesign that website? I mean, just the entire portion below the curve of the improved site. And so anyway, I'm kind of ranting at the moment, but this is just something that I wish that we could improve. We're trying to do our best to advocate for.
And this is not just rant. It's like pure knowledge we have after so much of experience. First of all, people they don't keep user experience in focus. It's another thing. Another thing is that they don't pay much focus on content as well. Their content, they don't know that content really, really pulls things. If you match a great design with a really, really great content has to be one notch above design, I feel. If the content is great, design is not that great, people would come for it again and again because they'll find their match.
Especially if you have good usability, right? It doesn't matter how it looks. If it's good content and good usability, that site will age well. People will be happy with it. You're absolutely right. I'll look at clients sometimes with like an older website, and it's very, very simple, but the content is good. And a very, very simple website with good content is fine for me. Like, you don't need to have an award-winning design if you have great content and good usability. I mean, you're absolutely right. Content should come first. And I do think that it is sometimes not the case.
Yeah, when we were studying, it was always this line. There were 2 lines, if you remember. First was KISS, keep it simple, stupid. It's not spoken anymore. The second was content is the king. Content is the real king. So we grew up with that, and we knew that, content is the thing that matters a lot. And many people write content, many websites have content, but they don't write the content that is king. You cannot come to a website, many of the websites that are awarded for designs and its interactions, but you don't want to come back to it again because you don't find anything valuable there other than looking at few things going here and there. And content is the king. It has to be there. The second thing which I was mentioning was that you mentioned there's a 5 year period. People come and redesign their products or design. We make lots of applications, mobile applications as well. So I think that's not how you build a really, really great product or a website. It has to be continuous, gradual improvement, month over month. You add few things. You talk to your people. You talk to your customers. Go to them. Understand that they still what are their pain points still and where they would be delighted. So these two things are very important: understanding pain points, and the second thing is where they would be delighted. Brian Chesky famously said that make something which 1,000 people love rather than make something which 1,000,000 people sort of like. So when 1,000 people would love it, they'll become into million. So
That's a great quote.
Yeah,
that's a great quote.
Yeah, so I feel that it's continuous improvement.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I was on a podcast about 2 months ago, and I had my thesis was don't redesign your website, which was, obviously antithetical to the core service offering of my company. But this was really speaking to kind of more enterprise, mid-market, organizations that have a high opportunity cost of getting things wrong when it comes to their digital marketing, right? So don't redesign your website. There's a really great book written by the folks that founded CRE, or Conversion Rate Experts, called Making Websites Win. And their entire approach is, you should be making small incremental changes and doing tests. And the goal is, ultimately to do as many tests as possible that are winning as you can in the shortest amount of time based on real data, right? Being data informed. And that's continuous improvement. I mean, lean UX, right, which is a concept that has been derived from the development industry, which is Agile Manifesto, says, lean is less waste, get to market quicker. Agile is iteration with feedback, with data, with information. So lean and agile is get to market quickly, iterate with data, right? And I just think that we tried really hard to sell this service to our clients, and people were just so adamantly against it. They really wanted the old school traditional website redesign, one project and done, launch it and leave it, time bound, fixed cost. They didn't want anything to recur. And so I just think the market was just not, had no appetite for continuous improvement. We have over time found a niche for it, but it's still not for everyone. It's frustrating. And so we're working toward that future. But one thing I wanted to go back to, you mentioned that quote, make something 1,000 people love. I think that's a wonderful quote. I have a quote on my wall right here. I don't know if you can read it, but it's basically, don't make something unless it is both necessary and useful. But if it is both necessary and useful, don't hesitate to make it beautiful. And, beauty, obviously, I think is more than just aesthetic. It is the simplicity, the brevity, the clarity, the humanity. But you used a word that I love, which is delight, right? So create something that creates an experience that is delightful. And I think the reason I love that word is because, to me, it by definition is like exceeding your expectations, right? So you're kind of like pleasantly surprised. So how few times do we have delight, pleasant surprise in using a web interface, a mobile app, a digital product, period? It's kind of not too often, to be honest, and I think when you do, you understand innately that someone spent time to make it that way, right? I forgot the quote by, I think it was Lincoln, maybe, our United States famous president, Abraham Lincoln. He said, I would have wrote a shorter letter, but it would have taken more time, and so his concept is like, simplicity is not easy. It's actually harder. And when you spend time to make something, simple and clean, that is actually way harder than making something that's convoluted and messy.
That's the reason why most of the intellectuals win on Twitter more than they win on Facebook. right? They will on Twitter because they know how to articulate well in short lines. That's very difficult for many people. And yes, I mean, about the thing that you said earlier, that people have to they don't have to redesign the websites or redesign their user interface. They have to constantly, gradually improve it. I think it's largely true if your product is running well. If your product is running well, if your website is running well, do not do a complete overhaul. Just keep on adding small nuances, small modifications month over month. And because you have so many people coming there, that's just a common sense that, if you have so many people coming to your website or a product, you cannot Amazon cannot change it. They cannot change an area from here to here because so many people are used to it. You cannot do anything about it, even if they want to. Even if some of their designers think that we can make something uber cool which is not there as of now, they cannot do it. So if the product is running really well, do it. I mean, we have few examples where we completely overhauled the user interface and the companies became so big. One of them is Casper. It's a sales tool, and this is a company from France, and they came to us right in COVID times, and then they were like, guys, we think that we have a great product, but it's not running. Can you audit it? So we checked. We were like, you have your admin section where people come and, manage their companies, manage their automation workflows and sales pipeline and cycle is not good. So is not your website. So we completely overhauled. It took us like 4 to 5 months, but their increase was like this. They just rocketed and they became so big. They have so many paying customers right now. It was the power of design overhaul. So it's like, it really depends upon what your current website is or a current product is.
Yeah, I think it's also, I mean, just kind of speaking directly to that, what is your confidence level that the site is underperforming? And I mean, how do you go about understanding that? And I think that I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, to me, it's the trifecta of three things, right? You have business objectives where the business the business organization needs. You have the users and what they're trying to accomplish. And then you have the website and the technology requirements. And these all intersect and mash together to form, the user experience where you have the people interacting with the technology. You have the business technology experience where the business is interacting with the technology. And then the people interacting with the company is the customer experience, which is much more than just the website, right? The website is one slice of a customer journey. And this customer journey starts with awareness and ends with evangelism. And so, they're going from awareness, I have a problem, to let me go find a solution, to, oh, I found some options. Now I got to decide and pick one, and your website is just somewhere in there. And, so I think customer journey mapping is a really, well, first knowing who your users are, right? So understanding if you're B2B. So if you're listening to this podcast and you are B2B, you need to know who your ICP is, which is your ideal client profile, and your buyer personas. These are very distinct things. An ICP is black and white. It's these companies that have this much annual revenue, that have this many employees, that are in these geographic areas, whatever works for you. We had a client where their ICP, because they did mail services, was how many physical pieces of mail does this company touch per month? If it's more than 1 million, they fit. If it's less than 1 million, they're not an ideal client profile for us, right? So, whatever metric is black and white, but a buyer personas are the roles and titles and the mushy emotions of what the pains and the hopes and the dreams and things like that. And so, I'm sure that when you guys were redesigning that product, understanding the buyer persona and then kind of going through the brand script of, we have a character who has a problem, meets a guide,
Exactly.
gives them a plan, all these things, and they go through the website. And then you have the data, right? So the business objectives, like what are we trying to get them to do when they come to the site? And you had clear, things that you were trying to resolve and fix. So you're right. I mean, I think that with intention comes a better chance for results.
Yeah. Do you do user customer interviews and all those things? I mean, we are doing it. We are doing it from last 3 to 4 years, and for any business who has a really good budget, I think these are the most important things because recently, I mean, we are working with Ernst and Young on a product for hotels, and we are the ones who are designing it and then maybe later developing it. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak about it, but okay, I'll give you overview that, it's about hotels. So we have taken interviews of like 50 people, and for like 1.5 hours to 2 hours. So we have around 75 to 100 hours of knowing from the exact people who are going to use that product or who are using something similar to it. It's a huge advantage. We know the kind of grid systems or design systems that will be put in place, and how they look at things. Are their views modern, or their age group is in between 40 to 55, how they're going to look at things, how efficient they are, how what they want, what they do not want. And if they do not know anything, what's that thing that they do not know? It's very important when you interview people. So I think that's the most important thing which many businesses are missing, and maybe they don't want to put money there. What's your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, so we have traveled the journey of design by assumptions, and obviously we do all types of user research, and interviews are definitely one of those things, whether it's interviews or moderated, user testing, where you have people, are using the app and they're talking out loud, or whether you're just talking to them, or stakeholder interviews as well, like different organizational departments and things like that at the company. We also do in our research things like tree testing, right? So creating variants of the navigation sets and then asking questions and allowing people to traverse navigation sets and getting kind of quantitative and qualitative feedback of how people navigate through sites. But I mean, there's just so many tools in the tool belt of user testing, and there's so many great websites that have the ability to, kind of do these things pretty quickly and effectively. They don't cost a lot of time and money. But I would add, so you mentioned you've interviewed all these people. That's great. And let's say you have 200 hours. So this 200 hours, like some people might be like, well, what was the point of that? I mean, I think at its essence, where you're looking for patterns, and in those patterns, you're looking for repeating patterns that can turn into strategies that can be employed to improve outcomes, right? But here's the thing I'd be interested in is like, okay, let's say you take all those 200 hours and you find patterns and you create strategies, employ those strategies, and you have, new designs and new, user flows and things like that to address all this stuff. I would assume the next step would be to put that back in front of those same people and see how it actually performs, right? Otherwise, you still kind of design based on the assumptions that you made based on their feedback without letting them look at it again. Wouldn't that be like the next step? Like kind of it, to me, that's the idea of like involving real people in the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning is, get out of the curse of knowledge, like get real people, get their feedback, iterate it, and then see what they say, and then build it. And then after you've built it, then give it to them again. You know,
That's the only way it works. That's the only way it works, because these are the real customers of the product. We're taking interviews from them. We're going to show them possibly wireframes and then user interface. How do they feel? We're going to take feedback again. We're going to build the product after multiple feedbacks, and they're going to use it and they're going to give constant feedbacks, and we're going to improve the product where we feel it's very important to understand if the user is right as well. If somewhere out of 50 people, we might keep on moving forward with 30, and we feel that maybe 5 to 10 people are speaking about this thing, we have to change it. So
yeah,
that's how it moves.
yeah. It's funny. We're doing this right now with the client. I can't share all the details, but it is an interactive game, which is very unique. We typically are building marketing and e-commerce websites in some web applications, but absolutely we haven't built a game. And this isn't like a very complex game. It's a word-related game. So, the mechanics are fairly straightforward, but in order to test it, we couldn't just show people static screenshots like wireframes. Like, so I used ChatGPT and wrote the entire game. I don't code at all, by the way, So in one night, having a conversation with ChatGPT, it coded all of the CSS, HTML, and JavaScript for an interactive game. And I'm talking about just having a conversation with ChatGPT. So it's just really cool, the world we live in, that now in our user testing. Now we ended up, our developer created a different version. I just wanted to see if I could do it for my own purposes because, we're living in this brave new world of generative AI. But I just wanted to encourage all those folks that are listening. There's just so many creative ways to get something in front of people and get feedback on it, and I just thought it was so interesting that I was able to create a completely working, I mean, like with a startup screen, with the settings screen, with like an instruction sequence, with all the functionality of the mechanics of the game, and just a conversation, and all, I mean, all the thousands of lines of code that it created, and I didn't write a single one, you know, which is like mind blown.
Which version did you like the most? The one that your developer created or ChatGPT?
Well, so I don't know, to be perfectly honest, if my developer ended up using ChatGPT in some level either. I didn't bother to ask. I just gave them the one that I created. So, I think the diplomatic answer would be, that it was the one that we created as a team. But ultimately, I'm just, I do think that the development industry is at risk of being, impacted by generative AI. To be honest, I think any industry that is a doing industry is going to be at risk from a digital perspective, because I think that we need to specialize based on our thinking and not our doing. So if you're an organization that just gets hired to do things and you don't get hired to think, you are going to be most at risk of being, marginalized by generative AI, because generative AI is going to get better at all the fundamentals, right? Which is design and development and writing content. But what it's not going to be as good at is the synthesis, right? Recently I sat down with our director of UX and I was like, man, I really want to revamp how we go about our strategic approach. And we used to just say, okay, our projects include a strategy phase. And we would do different activities in the strategy phase, but we have just absolutely completely deconstructed our strategy phase and then reconstructed it. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that it starts with discovery. And discovery is where you're really getting alignment. I want to understand your needs. I want to understand your user needs. I want to understand the technology requirements, the expectations around the user experience and the customer journey. And so it's discovery and then research, what you guys are doing, right? And so research, has all these different kind of multi-pronged approaches. And so now you've done discovery, research, and then it's analysis. Okay, we got all this data. Like you said, Sanchit, you guys have 200 hours of data. Well, what are you going to do with that? Because if it's just sitting in a bunch of video files, right, or transcriptions, that's helping no one. So analysis is where you find the patterns, and then finally strategy, where you kind of then form and shape that analysis into a winning plan, and then that winning plan can then be enacted upon. And I think that process where you have discovery, research, analysis, and strategy and planning, that's the part that is the secret sauce of any organization. And I think that's the part that's going to be the most difficult for AI to replace.
Exactly. When you mention AI to replace people who are not thinking, I think they're gone already. Most of the companies that were not thinking, or people who were not thinking, I think they're gone already. They don't have much work in our industry anymore. So it's mostly the thinkers who are left, and thinkers are going to run this industry. I think it's a good pivot. I think it's a good step towards building some great things. ChatGPTs and AIs are obviously going to help us a lot. I think we're going to go one step ahead. We are just waiting for that hardware breakthrough to happen, where some company would come out with a really nice hardware where we can use AI and we can really, really make amazing things. Maybe the screen that we are talking to can be in 3D, can do lots of things. So I think we are a bit away from it. As soon as that happens, we'll have new shiny toy to play with. So
yeah,
I think
go ahead, Sanjay.
Yeah, I think that's where we're moving.
Absolutely. I was trying to find, there is this statistic I saw about, because you said, the people that are just doing aren't here anymore. But I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, but I get where you're going, right? And I mean, if you look at Fiverr or Upwork or any of these other platforms, this is a platform of doers mostly. I mean, maybe there's some thinkers on there too, but the point is, there's a lot of folks doing. And I think I read somewhere, I saw, maybe, don't quote me on this, but it was like work on Fiverr was down 35% year over year since the release of ChatGPT 4. And I think it's just going to continue to go down. And so, while these people are not necessarily out of a job, I do think that the vast majority of the folks that were doing this very simple work, where it's like take a spreadsheet and sort it based on X, Y, Z. Well, I can drop that in ChatGPT and get it done in 3 seconds, now. And it can do some pretty advanced scraping and the creation. I mean, well, obviously it can do advanced everything. Um, so you're right. And I think that we have to find a way to kind of be ahead of the curve. And I think the other thing I might mention about this, and I don't know what you think about this, I'd love to know your thoughts actually, is it's one thing to specialize based on your thinking and to not be replaceable based on your thinking, but it's the other thing to convey that. And so I've been thinking a lot about like unique IP, right? Or just how you talk about your products and services in a unique and effective way, right? I recently I was doing some research on, just differentiation. And I saw something that caught my eye by a company called Agency Mavericks. And they talk about your signature system. And so, having a signature system, versus like, oh, well, we just do digital marketing, just like everyone else does digital marketing. Okay, well, what makes you unique? So your first order differentiation would be a horizontal or vertical specialization. So horizontal would be the services you offer, right? So we're in digital marketing, we're in web design, we're in UX. You just kind of get narrower and narrower until you decide that's what you want to specialize in. And then vertically by industry or market. But the second order differentiation is, to me, your signature system. It's your approach, it's your thinking, it's your methodologies and practices and tools that you've created, your unique IP. And maybe you even have your own applications and platforms that you've created over time. So I'd be curious to understand, like, how is your process unique? I mean, not really putting you on the spot. Do you guys have a methodology that you've kind of like shaped over time that says like, here's a deck, here's how we work, here's what makes us better than everybody else?
Yeah, I think it's something which is very simple. When we started, as you mentioned, that we called ourselves as digital creative industry, digital design and development agency. And then as we started moving on, we started working on applications, mobile applications, desktop applications, web applications, and then ultimately IoT devices. Like we have created smart parking systems where if the phone is nearby, the gate opens itself, and all those things like IoT devices and applications for Apple Watch and all those things. I think we started becoming many things, but we didn't have something common. So I think the ultimate thing is that we should have a purpose of what we are doing. What's that thing? And there are many companies there which I know have made themselves industry specific only. We work only for healthcare. We have huge experience there. This is the other companies say. And they've become quite specialized. They've become quite good in that. Some companies have gone into fintech, which started alongside us, and they're doing great work in fintech. They're specialized in that field. And they have lots of distribution. So that matters for a company or an agency. Not many people understand that's, if you have specialization in one thing, there are many players who are going to come to you, irrespective of ChatGPT or other thing. A fintech company or a healthcare company is not going to say that we would get things done by ChatGPT. They cannot get anything done. People do not even know how to put that into an SDK or a development studio and make an app out of it. They don't understand, or they can make a web page, but they won't know how to host it. They don't know so many things. So some companies have specialized into one field and they're doing really amazing there. Really amazing numbers, really nice team. Some companies have gone into cloud, and specifically AWS cloud or a Google cloud or Azure cloud, and they're doing like really amazing things. And I'm not talking about post ChatGPT. I'm talking about pre ChatGPT as well.
Yeah, this is just in general. Yeah, I mean, specialization is like a rocket engine. It's funny because I have resisted very strongly specialization, right? At Glide, we are a generalist agency, or at our current incarnation. And I have seen the writing on the wall. I mean, you see it everywhere. It's like over time, our industry is consolidating around specializations. I feel like, and a lot of organizations are specializing and seeing great success, just as you mentioned. And it's frustrating to me. I recently read a book in a book club with an agency network called Nostos. which is awesome to plug for Nostos. Um, and we read Range. And the whole concept of Range, this book Range, was about how being a generalist in a chaotic environment is actually a huge benefit. And basically, the idea is that, like, if the world is very prescriptive, if the world is very like structured, then being a specialist is a benefit. So, like, if the world looked like a chessboard and I was a chess master, I would be winning at life, like, but the world does not look like a chessboard. It is chaotic, right? And so being a generalist allows you to excel at because you can kind of connect the dots on more things. But I think the thing that frustrates me is I do get the benefits to clients in specialization because you start to narrow your pattern match filter. And when you narrow your pattern match filter, you can see the signal in the noise more than a generalist. So, like, let's just pick healthcare. If Glide was a specialist, if our specialization was healthcare, and we still had the same horizontal focus, which is web design and development, and then organic search optimization, so kind of top of funnel. But if we only did that for healthcare, then we wouldn't have to get up to speed with this client who's in the automotive industry, this client who's in CPG, and this client who's in a nonprofit. And it's like you're having to orient around who is your audience, what are your technology needs. It's like when you pick an industry, generally a lot of those things are kind of the same for every client. So now you can kind of narrow in and say, okay, I'm not even paying attention to your buyer personas. I already know who your buyer personas are. I already know what their needs are. I want to get really specific about the nuance of those needs. And so you can just narrow in on those, so I think it's like bang for your buck. It's like when people choose a specialist agency, they're basically choosing the path of least resistance. And if you think about it, innovation to me is better, faster, easier, cheaper, right? So like when you specialize, you're generally making it so that the client has a better, faster, cheaper, easier experience with, because you've narrowed that focus. Anyway, I've just been thinking about this a lot lately.
The reason why we started and we built these companies is that we like playing that game of gaining huge knowledge and putting our mark on different things. So that's why many companies are generalists. They like the idea that they're working on automotive industry or healthcare or fintech or e-commerce and all those things. We like that thing, but we have to match that with how customers are thinking about companies as well. So I'll tell you one thing, right? You have a company which is generalist, which is Glide. You get all kind of projects and products. What stops you from making a niche company under Glide or maybe separate? And it's simply having a domain and a hosting. You can call it Abacus and you can make it all about fintech. And you add that we have created these fintech products, and you make a list of 4 to 5 companies which specialize in, as you said, that you make a lot of things in e-commerce. Just have a company there and, just totally, completely, it's about getting a domain and all those things. And the parent company can be Glide. And you make all the blogs and marketing and everything, focusing on e-commerce there. So the clients who are coming would simply see that, okay, this company has made huge strides. They don't know that, being a generalist also means that we understand how things work or we figure it out. But they see the body of work in just one domain and they're like, okay, this company, Abacus, is a great company. So I think we people who run companies and agencies, we can, it's all about holding a domain, and, we already have clouds and making a website. We have a great team. We just make a small website and keep on gradually increasing it and marketing and seeing where it goes.
Have you done that before and seen success at it?
Yeah.
So we're currently in conversations with David C. Baker, who is indisputably kind of an expert in positioning business strategy for creative firms. And we're about 3/4 of the way through this consulting engagement with him. And it's been going great. He's awesome. But it's painful because, just going back to your earlier point, most generalist agencies are generalist agencies because they like the diversity, not because they, think it's, going to help them grow or make more money. I think most people kind of intuitively know that specialization is the path to growth over time. It's just at the beginning when you have a pie, with 100 clients, and then you look at a specialization in any of the areas that you are, and you're like, well, that's 1/3 of our clients. How in the world are we going to be able to sustain ourselves with what? And just to kind of unlock the limiting belief that when you specialize, you're actually going to, be able to capture more market share, get more of the conversation, close more deals at higher amounts, and so like I am a believer in specialization. And anyways, kind of going to your point, like I'm really honestly thinking about a sub brand. And I think there's a lot of power there because crap, I was like, well, if I can create one sub brand, then I can create three sub brands, So I'm going to make a nonprofit sub brand and a B2B sub brand and a B2C sub brand and an e-commerce it's funny because I'm just like, if I could wave the magic wand, Sanchit, I would create a B2B Webflow agency tomorrow, because B2B and Webflow are like peas in a pod, man. I love WordPress. We've been building on it for years, but it is like ancient at this point, and no matter how much they innovate, they are just sitting on like a foundation of technical debt, in my opinion, you know. But like, and Webflow is like not, a panacea of like all things web, but like, I think that it solves a lot of the problems and it's growing 25x over WordPress right now in terms of market share.
Absolutely.
And so like technology companies, you can spin up you can just eliminate the development and have the designer code the site. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, different technologies come and go. So Webflow is great. If it really depends. If a company makes like really good software products, they should, first things first. You mentioned that getting specialization. We can be still generalist after being specialist because we'll make multiple brands. And the team would be there for specialization, but at the same time, the other team would gain knowledge and we would gain knowledge and we'll understand that healthcare sector is moving this way, pharmaceuticals is moving this way, fintech is moving this way, and e-commerce, which is completely different, is moving this way. So we can play, our chess, we can play our moves quite well. But at the same time, if there is a software company, they can go into niche that healthcare is always having its moat. People are going to get ill, people are going to need surgeries and all those things. They never go under recession or economic downturn. People still have to pay bills. And there are few sectors which are always evergreen. So if a software company understands what are the factors, they make softwares for them. At the same time, if agencies target them, that's a really great deal to companies or businesses that have huge moat. And they understand that they have never gone in last 150 years. They've never gone under economic depression or anything like that. At the same, at the same time, we know that these are up and coming technologies, up and coming innovations. We can be in that space as well. At the same time, I believe that we can make Figma plugins as well. It's there. It's gonna be huge. So I see that there is.
Oh, you mean just to translate Figma right to a website?
That's already happening. There's a company called Locofy that is already doing that, and there are a few other companies that are already doing. But I mentioned that Figma plugins for developers because not many.
Oh, so just basically sell the shovels, right? Like the gold rush. Like, hey, we're just selling the shovels to the people looking for gold. We're not.
Yeah. I mean, not many people are focusing on that Figma is used by more developers than designers. Not many people understand that because even in our company, even in your company, if you have created a design on Figma, it took 2 to 3 designers to make it for a small, medium project. And it takes a team of 8 to 10 developers to develop it. Not many people understand that. So they have to make a plugin or something for developers. I mean, there is already developer handoff and all those things. But I've seen some companies making those moves where they're converting them to Next and React and how they can place it into their code and all those things. Those things are going to be huge and not many people are looking there. So it's actually finding small nuances like this.
Yeah, well, I love it, man. There's so many good ideas. Well, I don't know the exact audience that's listening to this podcast, but if you are an agency leader or you are a technology leader, really in the space of marketing, and you're thinking about specialization or specializing, I think based on Sanchit tonight's conversation, I would recommend personally, it would either be healthcare, finance, or technology. Those three large, kind of universes, there's plenty of specialization inside of those, obviously, but like those would be the three that are perennial, that don't go anywhere, right? that have been around for the last 50 years. They'll probably be around for another 50 years, you know. So if you are going to specialize, those would be the three to maybe consider in starting with.
And at the same time, fast moving consumer goods. So
Yeah, CPG.
yeah,
Yeah.
FMCG, we call it here. So people are, even if there's a war, if there's a pandemic, people are not going to stop drinking Cokes. People are not going to stop having breads or, your oats and everything. So if you have specialization towards those fields, if you can support those companies, you're going to make really great things.
So basically, you could specialize in CPG and healthcare. So you can sell all the products to make people unhealthy, and then service also the companies that are trying to keep people from dying. You know, that would be like the two sides of the. I'm just joking. Obviously, there's a lot of healthy products out there, but anyways, Coke is not one of them. So I'm just saying.
I've seen some pharmacies in India. I don't know how pharmacies in US works, but they sell things that make people unhealthy and they sell things that make people healthy. So I always say that you have the best of the both worlds. So
Oh yeah, I think look, we're not going to get into conspiracy territory land, but I mean, I just think that our entire medical system is about keeping people dependent. You know, I mean, there's a really great book called Outlive I recently read, and he just talks about the difference between medicine 2.0 and medicine 3.0. His whole thesis is medicine 3.0. He's speaking of medicine 2.0, which is the current incarnation of medicine that we have now, and how basically it's all set up to solve people's problems only after they get them, which is way too long past when they could actually do something beneficial and proactive. And a lot of it has to do with nutrition and exercise and all of these other things. And so anyway, I don't want to go down that path, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard about it a lot that US eats lots of medicines. So I'm not sure it works world around. I mean, in India, people don't take medications for many things. They take only
People are dying of affluence in the United States, right? You know, it's like we have too much food and too much comfort. And so we're dying of too much of that, right? You know, and then you have other cultures around the world that are dying from malnutrition and, poor medical. We have the opposite problem. We're dying of affluence, right? You know, I mean, people are eating themselves to death. And, it's when someone goes blind because they're drinking, a gallon of Coke every day, and then they get diabetes. And, I think that you just kind of have to like question, how do we get here? Like, but yeah.
Yeah. Travis, before we, put an end to this great conversation that we have, I want to ask you like one last question. What are the most recent research findings in user-centric approach that, user-centric design that you've found and, something that has caught your attention? I'm asking you because you make both ends meet, like user experience and design with marketing. So it would be highly valuable if there is something that you have seen. It has caught your attention.
Yeah, I think what I've learned, and this is a journey that we're becoming better at. So I would not call Glide a user research and user testing experts. To be an expert is someone who's failed in every possible way in a very narrow field. To me, I would point at like CXL. I think that they do a really good job. Conversion XL, they have all kinds of really great research and information on user testing. I just reread Don't Make Me Think again for the third time. This book, I think, was written in like 2000 and then updated in like 2010 or 2015 or something like that.
Yeah.
Awesome book. Steve Krug does it right. And I was reading it and it's just so ancient at this point. You're looking at the screenshots and it's like these web pages that are like from the 2000s. It's just like painful to look at. But the fundamentals of that book are still applicable. And then he's got another book that's really great called Rocket Surgery, which is like about, this simplified version of user testing, which is also really great. And that one's pretty old as well, but I mean, it's still applicable. And so I would say the biggest insights that I've learned is that user testing, like this can be done at any budget. Really, there is just no valid reason that anyone will give me that will make me think that they don't need to do user testing at all. Because, I mean, really, when you think about what is the point of user testing, I think it's twofold, in my opinion. I'm not an expert at this, but this is my perspective. It's empathy and getting outside the curse of knowledge, like the getting objectivity, right? So I mean, I think empathy is kind of the end all, because moving away from the subjective to the objective means you're becoming more empathetic, right? You're understanding things from a different person's perspective, right? You're seeing what's really true and getting to the truth. And so I think that, from that perspective, it really comes down to understanding that when you get into design, a lot of times people will come up with a list of maybe 100 things they want to test or change or improve. But if that hasn't been steeped in a process, right, that collects information from real people, then you really haven't, gotten there. And I would say for us, I think that the fastest way to do that, moderated user testing, is something you can do very quickly. You can grab your mom and put her on the client's website and then have her annotate. Obviously, it's better if you get a real user who's, ideal client profile, buyer persona. And go through that process. And so I think you don't, and the beauty of Zoom these days, right, with moderated testing, I mean, you can do unmoderated testing with usertesting.com or any of these platforms, right? And you can even buy audiences with these things. But I think that moderated testing to me is kind of just a really simple, easy way to get real feedback from real people real quickly. And then once you've kind of broken the seal, once you've done this a couple of times and you see how easy it is and how it's not very scary, that it will be something that you can reuse at different points in the process. Just like you were saying, Sanchit, with the feedback you've received on this E&Y project you're doing, where, eventually you're going to take all that feedback and iterated design and then bring those same people in, or a subset of those people, and have them give feedback on that. How are we doing? What do you guys think? And so I think that's the key, right? Is just iterate with data.
Amazing. Yeah. With the second time when we have made the product, we're not going to ask them any question. We're only going to record their screens when they're using the product. I think that would give us like really good feedback. So I think that would be really, really good way to move forward with knowing what they're doing, how everyone is interacting with the product. If we ask them questions, then we might get puzzled answers. Or biased answers. We're going to simply record their screens and see how they're using the product. And that's it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation. And for any intrepid soul that have made it to the end of this and are still here, thank you for taking the time to listen. And I guess I could maybe just share how people can reach me. Would that be okay, Sanchit?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So if for any reason you'd like to reach out, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Travis McAshan. My last name is interesting. It's MCASHAN. So Travis McAshan. Or just visit our website, Glide, GLIDE design.com, glidedesign.com.
Please see Travis's work and his company's work. It's really, really amazing. I've seen a lot of it. And he has a really nice team. People who have good mixture of designers and people in marketing doing SEO and ads. And that's a really, really good mixture for a company. We're going to put all the links here in the video as well and in the description below as well. So everyone can look at Glide. It's really amazing.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the program, Sanchit. And you guys are doing awesome work, and just getting to hear about some of these really cool projects. And, I'm thankful and honored.
Thank you for doing this, Travis. Thank you very much.